What is up, and welcome back to another episode of Music Talks. My name is Brennan, and Happy New Year. We are in 2025. It's a whole new year, and we're still looking back at some of the great music that was released last year. There's still a lot to go through. We're going to pick up back in the end of June and then get into the summer releases and a couple more of that. But of course, there's still a lot to talk about before we get a lot of new releases for the new year, so we can kind of dive into a couple more. And we're starting in the summer. It is cold and snowing here in Kentucky and Tennessee right now. And it's wishful thinking about summertime, summer releases and things like that. So best place to start right now. Like I said, it's the new year. There's a lot to talk about, but there's still a lot of good music that to dive into from last year. So like I said in the last couple episodes, maybe you will hear a couple new albums or hear about them that you've never heard of, or just hear some of your favorites. I'm super excited to get into it. Let's start. So we've got two more releases for June. The first one that I'm going to talk about is Algorithm by Lucky Daye. So this is his third official album. I would say fourth project. He had kind of a small collaboration project a couple years ago, which was really good. And Lucky Daye is just holding it down for the men in R&B music. There's not a whole lot of guys in R&B music right now on a mainstream level, but also in general. I'm sure that there are a lot out there, and I'm always looking and discovering and trying to find more, but R&B is held down by the ladies, and they are killing it. And we need more male stars in the R&B world. We've had Usher, and he's the biggest one you think of, but you even think about Neo, and there's a couple more, but there's really not even that many huge ones that have made it to the level that Usher has, for example. But the only other one I can think of that I really am a big fan of right now is Josh Levi, who is completely underrated, and he's up and coming. But yeah, it's kind of sad that even though Lucky Daye is kind of like the shining star and kind of that the leading man in R&B right now, he still kind of goes unnoticed in mainstream scale. And of course, that's how R&B is in general, which is sad for sure. But he makes really good art, and he's got a great voice, and he just does things sonically even differently for an R&B artist, and I think that's super cool. This album, Algorithm, was really different, and I feel like kind of experimental for him. He has such phenomenal tone and range, and he's got really good storytelling in his music, and he's got some really good ballads, but also some really upbeat bangers for sure. And so I think this album was kind of completely different. I don't think it's his necessarily best work, but I do think that it is a very solid project. He did this really interesting thing where the album is super long, but it's not that many tracks when you look at it. And when you're listening to the whole album, and it's of course one of those that you want to listen to from start to finish, in one sitting if you can, he's got these sometimes 3-minute instrumental outros on the end of all of his songs, and I think that's very that's cool first off, but it's very out of the ordinary for any kind of artist, right? Because for one, the general public and the audiences have very short attention span, and so we're in that weird time where everybody was making short songs and moving in and out with new music and singles all the time. And I absolutely hate that, because short songs, sometimes you don't even have enough time to digest all of it. So, and then it's over, and then you're just listening to it again, right? But of course, that's good for sales and streaming and things like that. But he did a really cool thing with this album, and he did these outros on it. And I felt like I'm even kind of a guilty about skipping and going on to the next track when things get a little too long, because that's just how attention span is with everything in the world, right? And so I think it was really cool. And if you are kind of a music nerd like me and enjoy arrangements and the instrumentation and the production side of things, it was a really cool way that he did this, and the way that those tracks led into the next track, and not just you could tell definitively this is the end of the track and this is the next one, but they still cohesively connected, which I think was a really cool way to do that. He's got a couple of really cool collaborations on here that I feel like were completely unexpected. The first one being Teddy Swims, who is phenomenal. He has such a soulful voice, and I felt like that was a very unexpected collaboration. And the other one that really surprised me was Ray. And if you're not familiar with Ray, go look her up. She's so underrated, and she's on the rise, and she's been doing it for many, many years. But she just put this very interesting spin on a song. They have two completely different styles and two different ranges, and they just kind of mesh together really, really well. Like I said, I think this album as a whole was just very experimental. He tried a lot of new things. I think that it was not a concept album, but you could see concepts and where he was trying to kind of escape reality in some songs, and I think that was a really cool thing. And of course, his Grammy-nominated song "That's You" was on this album, which is just straight classic, beautiful R&B, and it's a phenomenal track. I don't even know how to explain it. It's one of my favorite R&B tracks of all time. And it just kind of pays tribute to like retro and just traditional classic R&B, but also has a very progressive, very futuristic sound to it, and I think that's so cool. But yeah, it was a good entry for him. Like I said, I feel like it's kind of gone a little bit unnoticed, just with how the year has gone and just R&B and the R&B males in general. But it's still a really good album. If you have ever listened to any of his songs, give it a chance. I think it's a little bit more mainstream leaning than his previous songs and previous albums, but it's still kind of very faithful to his sound. So yeah. And then moving into, of course, the very, very last album that we have for June, and I would say one of the top 5 projects of this year, in my opinion, and that is Omar Apollo's official sophomore album, God Said No. This was such a phenomenal album. Just from the standpoint of as a fan of Omar's work and what he's done in the past, and to just kind of see where he is now, in like all aspects of the word, it was growth and just like raw honesty and just, like I said, phenomenal. It was an amazing album, and it was also a very, very different sound for him. I think that if you're familiar with Omar's work, you would know that he's very confident in his sound. I think that he enjoys making that kind of music that is fun and upbeat and is very much kind of in your face, but in a soft way, and just fun. And this was just a completely different direction for him. And it, his first album, I felt like took us on a journey. His first album was called Ivory a couple years ago, and it took us on a journey kind of, it was the first project that we had, a full body of work that we had from him. We had several EPs and just like a small project, Apollonio, and Ivory was just a perfect introduction to him, and it got him a Grammy nomination for Best New Artist. And so he just kind of dipped his toes in a lot of different sounds, and he's very proud and very confident in his roots, in his Latin and Spanish roots, and he always gives us a couple Spanish language songs on those albums that are usually just very phenomenal work as well. But he just kind of had this very naive sound, this very kind of open-eyed to whatever the world might bring into it. And this album is just a very mature, very different take for him. I think he as a person and his personality are very comical, very funny. He's very unfiltered and just fun. And this album was like so interesting to get from him because it's just a sad album as a whole. There's songs on here that are very confident and very much like goodbye to the ex and things like that, but the title is very retrospective. God Said No being just his way of saying, like, moving on from a situation that you may have tried to work on and try to make work and make right, but it's not supposed to happen, and there's nothing you can do with that. And so coming to that realization and just using that title, God Said No, he's kind of telling the story of heartbreak and having his heart broken and just moving through that and moving through the motions. And I would say that we have the best vocals that we've ever had from him on some of these tracks. It tells a whole story. It's very connected, and I think that this album took a different direction than his core fan base maybe was looking at. But it is so well done. And it kills me every day to think about Omar Apollo being one of the male pop stars right now that are just killing it and trying new things and giving performance aspects and things like that. And everyone just continues to overlook him. And I don't really understand where the disconnect is, because so often people are looking for that big male pop star, that next one. They're looking for the ones that bring the moves, that bring the vocals, that bring the storytelling and just the looks, literally everything. And he's doing all of that, and somewhere in the mix is still getting lost, and he's not getting that attention. So I'm not really sure where that is, but I'm just continuously so impressed with his work and his growth as an artist and a songwriter and even a vocalist. You can tell that he has just strengthened his voice so much, along with probably his mental state and everything else. And he's even got close to the end, he's got this like 2 to 3 minute monologue from Pedro Pascal where he talked about grief and redirection from that. And it was this like beautiful but completely heartbreaking moment that also fit in with the album so well. And I think that that's what the album is: redirection and grief and moving on from that and learning the hard way and maybe making the hard choice that's the right choice. But I feel like it's very relatable. But it is a sadder sound as a whole, as an album, but there are still some upbeat songs that definitely have that dance pop vibe, and I just really enjoy everything that Omar does, and I'm honestly ready for another album to see where he goes next. But I think that this album was so criminally underrated this year, and I saw it on a couple publications lists, but not enough, and definitely not low enough on the list of the best albums of the year. He is a star constantly in the making, and he deserves to be one of the biggest names right now, and he's confident in himself, and I think that that's what makes him such a great artist for sure. So, like I said, one of the best albums of this year for sure. So now we are moving into July. We're getting into the real summer hits. We're going to really kind of go through a lot of these very quickly because there are a lot, but summer always has a lot of releases. So what do you expect? The first one is an album by The Dip, a band that I just recently found out about, and this album is called Love Direction. It's they've got a couple albums under their belt, and they are pretty much like this big jazz ensemble, but not traditional jazz. They have just a lot going for them. They remind me a lot of like Leon Bridges, Black Pumas, that kind of sound. But I got into this album. It's just very groovy. I think it's one of those albums and one of those bands for old souls that just like music that sounds like maybe it's from the 60s, things like that, but is also very original, so to speak. And it's a great album. And it's not for everybody, but it is such a notable album for this year because they're killing it. They are. I was super impressed. I'm going to have to go back and listen to a lot more of their discography. But Head on a Swivel was probably my favorite song on that album. And it's just this really fun project. And yeah, I'm super excited to get more into them for sure. Next, we're going to talk about the next big mega pop country girl icon, and that is Miss Megan Moroney with her second album, Am I Okay? Now, Megan Moroney is killing it right now. There is nothing that she cannot do. She is relatable. She's fun. She's talented. She's down to earth. She's got everything that you want out of the next major country girl. And she's managed to already break into the mainstream realm and just kind of have a really solid fan base. But she's killing it. And, she released an album just a little over a year before her first album, Lucky. And it was a good album. It's what really caught my attention to her. But this album is just so dang good. It debuted on like number 8 or number 9 on the Billboard 200, which is insane, first off, for a new country female artist, a female artist in country music in general, and just country music. Like, there's just so many different accolades and accomplishments in that statement there, because she's doing something that so many deserving female artists in the country realm, the country space have not been able to do, right? We don't see many artists outside of like Casey Musgraves, Kelsey Ballerini, Maren Morris, not even like Carrie Underwood and Miranda Lambert are able to break the top 10 very often anymore, and they are the biggest women in country music, and she is killing it. She is just straight up killing it. And this album is just so different for country, but like it's not. And she has like this way of just being authentic and just writing songs and telling stories in a way that it's just like more relatable and more down to earth than a lot of country music. And she has a style and a songwriting technique that is just very, very unique to her that you're not going to find in any other country artist, and especially in any of the other females out in the game right now. And of course, I think she's got some similar vibes to Taylor Swift, even some Casey Musgraves in her. And I would venture to say that she's very much like a country Tate McRae, if you're familiar with her work, and they are very similar in that aspect. But she's just phenomenal. And I know I say that a lot about a lot of people, but she is definitely going to be the next big mega star in country. And I mean, she has blown up massively over the last year. She has gone from like playing tiny venues in Nashville to literally selling out a tour. And I mean, her Nashville tour dates had like, I don't even know, like 500,000 people in the queue, and like she could be playing arenas right now if she really wanted to. And I think it's very commendable that she's wanting to take her journey slow and start with those small venues and work her way up. But she's just, I think everyone is just catching on to something that's just really special. And, she's got a song on here. One of my favorite songs by her is No Caller ID. And it's just very sad. It's her talking about her trying to get over an ex, over a relationship, and then she's getting a drunk call in the middle of the night from somebody that she thought she was almost over with. And then she's just starting it all over again. And I don't feel like that's the kind of songwriting that a lot of musicians in general, but definitely not in country music, that we hear a lot about. And I just think that she's just killing it. And she has got some other like really fun songs like Man on the Moon, where she's talking about wanting to send every man on earth to the moon because they're all a disappointment. And I think she just has this very unique sound that she's tapped into, and she's already working on her third album. And I think that people respect her hustle, but people respect that she's just kind of an everyday girl, but she is putting that into her music. And I don't have much more to say. She is just, she's just a true talent. And I'm excited to see what else she does. She also won Best New Artist at the CMA Awards this year, and I think she's just real authentic. She calls herself the emo cowgirl, which is emotional cowgirl, and I think she's just funny and fun. And I haven't run into anyone who just doesn't enjoy her or hasn't given her a chance. But I would recommend this album to anyone who has just a slight interest or just an open ears to any kind of country. She is amazing, and bright future for her for sure. Next, we're going to talk about an artist that is very underrated, and I'm also late to the game. I've been aware of this artist for a little bit, but I haven't really gotten into her, and that is Griff with her debut album Vertigo. She has very, very strong vocals, and she is from the UK, and I think she's been slowly rising in the ranks over there. She's not really had a big breakthrough in the US yet. She did open for Sabrina Carpenter this year, which did get her a little bit more recognition, a little bit more spotlight here in the US. And she just put together a real pure pop album. There are some really great songs on here. I feel like it's like 15 songs, maybe a couple more, couple less. And I feel like it's very hard to keep a listener's attention sometimes, especially with a debut album that long. And she just managed to knock it out of the park for sure. I was very, very impressed with everything that she did on this project, and she's very underrated. She also released another track after the album came out called Last Night's Mascara, which is definitely one of the best pop songs of the year. But she's just kind of growing and doing more and more. But she has just a very unique authenticity to her, and just the production and the way that she uses her vocals in her projects is very unique. And then just the way they're layered and mixed, and I really appreciate that aspect. Being a music nerd, I think it sounds really cool. But she's just very underrated, and I'd love to see her just continue to grow in popularity for sure. The next one is another person that I have kind of gotten into this year, and that is Role Model, who some of you may be familiar with Role Model, some of you may not. This was a completely different direction for him. It was kind of a country take, kind of a Western, kind of alternative, if you will. He is usually just kind of this indie boy pop sound or whatever, but this is his album Kansas Anymore, and it's country, but it's not country. I don't know how to explain it. I think it's very different for him, very different for pop music, I guess. And it, like I've mentioned several times, that we have a big push for country, have a big push for that alternative folk sound right now, and so I was a little worried about how basic this project was going to be, and he managed to pull off something really, really cool. This was a project that I did not expect to be on this list at all for me. He also has a really good personality. I think that he is funny. He's kind of quirky, and he puts that into some of his songs, and I think that it's very evident, and people like that. They like that they feel like they know him through his music, and some really good songs on this album. Slip Fast, Deeply Still in Love. That was a song that kind of went viral on TikTok a little bit, and he apparently used to date Emma Chamberlain, who is a famous social media star, and apparently he's either still in love with her or something, but there are songs about her on this album, and she's like in another relationship right now, but it's not done in like a disrespectful way. But it just adds to the funny lore of this album, and I think it just kind of, it's not even clickbait, but it's just a way to get more listeners in, because he's just having fun and doing it in a very unique way. And I think this project could have gone very wrong, very basic, but it didn't. It was very, very good, and I think it's a good project for anybody that doesn't like country music, but has kind of the openness to the folk westerny sound. he's great, and I think he's going to continue to rise in popularity as well. And last, for July, we have one of the only EDM electronic dance albums this year that did not disappoint me, which pains me to say because dance music used to be one of the biggest things ever, and it's in a spot right now. It's not in a good spot. Even some of the best in the game have put out some really, really bad albums this year, but this is not one of them. And this is the debut album from a DJ dance artist I'd never heard of. His name is Salute. One of the only strong projects in EDM music this year. There's some club bangers on this album. I think that it kind of tells a story. It kind of that's not very common in EDM music for sure, because I feel like a lot of times you will get a lot of hodgepodge, a lot of different sounds that don't always connect. And I think that's also why I really like the Chainsmokers, because I feel like their projects kind of connect and things like that. And he did that with his project. I think there's some really, really good hidden gems. I didn't hear anything about this album at all. He's got collaborations with Sam Galatri, Rina Sawayama, and even Disclosure, which if you're familiar with EDM music, you definitely know Disclosure. They've done so much. He did very, very well for a debut project, and I don't think it leans too heavy in either direction of electronic or dance music, and it's also not too pop music either. It's very interconnected. I like the way that it kind of transitions from song to song. Really, really solid. Sadly, one of the only good dance albums this year. So now we're moving into August, and August it's packed. It is. We're going to kind of fly through some of these. The first is for another country star in the making, and that is Miss Ella Langley. And she kind of bursted onto the scene with her song with Riley Green, You Look Like You Love Me, which was viral on TikTok. And it was just a really cool take on country music. You know, she has... she just talks and she kind of tells the story through the verses and then sings in the chorus. And it has one of the catchiest choruses of the year, if not in the last couple of years. And she just has, like I said, a very unique sound is what I always look for in country music. And the girls are always bringing it. They're always doing something new, and a lot of times blowing out all of these basic white men in country music out of the water. I think she's wise beyond her years. She has very kind of some tongue-in-cheek songs. She's very spunky. She is just a real country girl, and she puts that into her music. And I think that she is kind of a modern-day Loretta Lynn or Trisha Yearwood, just those good old country girls. That's what she is, but she still has her own unique take on everything. And some of the songs I really like on that album. Besides that, The Girl You're Taking Home, really good song about, just kind of being the second choice always. Love You Tonight, it's a song about bad decisions when you're drinking. Another good song on that album is, what's it called? Better Be Tough, where she's just talking about how she can basically take you on. If you're going to be dumb, you better be tough, is what she says in the song. And I think she just has this raw, fun sound to her, and she's very young. She's like 24, so I think she's got a lot to show and a lot to give in country music. And I'm just really excited to see all these new female artists in country music that are just having this big boom and coming on the scene for sure. And yeah, I love it. It's a great project. She re-released it later on in the year with a deluxe and a couple other songs. And another thing that I thought was really cool was that she added some songs that were just acoustic on it. Like, there's not a non-acoustic version of it, but I think that was a very interesting artistic decision as well. But very, very solid project for sure. The next one is, believe it or not, another country album, and that is from I guess you could say former rap star, former R&B star, former rock star, and current country star, and that is Mr. Post Malone. And he just went all out with his album F1 Trillion. I think every single one of Post's album have been completely different, and his ability to just switch from genre to genre and try different things and kind of to explore different things that he is a fan of is very impressive. I think when you look at his discography, it's very, very diverse and unique, and he tries a lot of different things. And I think also some people would consider him a culture vulture, and I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that, just because I feel like he's so often, obviously he's going to benefit in rap spaces and things like that as a white man, but I don't feel like he takes advantage of these situations. He very much pays tribute and pays respect and features so many amazing artists no matter what genre he's doing it. And he did that. He did that with this album too. He had so many. I would say 99% of this album was collaborations with Chris Stapleton and Luke Combs and Luke Bryan and Lainey Wilson and Brad Paisley and literally Hank Williams Jr. He had the country Avengers basically up in here, and had all of them across these different songs. And he's also somebody that likes to make really, really long albums, and I think that was with his last album, Austin, which was kind of a pop direction moving into that country sound. I think that was kind of where it fell a little bit flat, was just that it was a little bit too long, but he tries a lot of different things with this album, and I think it works. It's country. It's pure country, and I'm a firm believer that anyone can make any kind of music they want, like I've said, and I think that he truly loves country music, and he's just fully engulfed himself in that world in the Nashville community. And I've seen him around in different events and doing different things and hanging out with people, and I think that he really cares about the community and the art form, and I think that he's always wanted to, I know he's stated that he's always wanted to make a country album, and I think that it was a good project. Something about, I've never really been a huge Post Malone fan, but something about his voice I think is so unique and so special, and it just kind of hooks listeners in a way that most people's voices cannot do. And I think that's so interesting. I can't figure out what it is about his voice or his tone, his range, that kind of hooks me in, but I am so impressed, and I think that he just continues to grow and get better and better as an artist. He managed to put so many artists that I don't care for on this album. Lainey Wilson, Jelly Roll, Ernest, Hardy, all of these artists that I feel like are so overhyped in country music and taking up massive space of other major talents that are being underappreciated. And some of my favorite songs in this album are the ones that he has with these artists. And I'm like, not many people can make an album with a new genre and feature people that I don't care for and make it a very likable song. And I was like, dang, how did he do that? Because I don't care for these people, and these were songs that I initially wanted to skip, but I cannot deny that they are great tracks, and I think that's just the Post Malone effect. He just has a very, I don't know, he's Post Malone, and I think that's all you can say about it. He did, of course, the next day put out The Long Bed, which was 9 more tracks that were all solo tracks, and I think that some of those were the better tracks. I also think he should have waited to put those out because the overconsumption and just oversaturation of too much music, and I think that is why those songs didn't really do anything. But they were still good. There's a lot of personal stories and songs for his daughter and just him as a person and growth, and I think that he had a really good outing on here. It's not the best album of the year, but you can't deny that it is noteworthy, and he's just going to be able to kill any genre that he does. So I'm excited to see what he does next. I think that he'll probably stay in country for a while, if not always. I really enjoyed it. I really did. The next one, we're moving out of country and moving into R&B from a very underrated R&B star who has been in the game for like 10 plus years and is not appreciated at all. I'll just say it. Miss Tinashe is a megastar that no one seems to care about, and I hate it. I hate it so much. This was her second entry in like her three-part project. The first one was Baby Angel, and this is Quantum Baby. And my only complaint with these is that they're less than 10 songs. This one is like 8 songs, maybe 9, and it leaves me wanting more. This one was very different from the first part, but I also think it's very different than anything that Tinashe ever does. She is a performer, a dancer, a singer. She has this creative concept for all of her albums that are so, so, so cool. And I don't know, I think that this has some dance vibes, but it also has some slow vibes. I think that it's short and sweet, and it definitely leaves you wanting more, which I think is exactly where you want an album to be. Of course, it has her breakout hit Nasty, which I was so glad to see her get some kind of recognition of all songs. I don't know why that's the song that blew up, but thanks to TikTok, it did get her some attention. She is going to sadly continue to be underrated, but I cannot wait to see what she does with the third part of this project and see how they all connect. But it's good. I like the first part better, but Quantum Baby is still a solid entry. The next one is after a huge 7-year hiatus, we got another album from Foster the People. This was Paradise State of Mind, which went on to be one of my favorite albums of the year, and definitely a top 10 album for me. And I think that people kind of forgot they existed. They had, like I said, 7 years is a long time between albums, and enough to bring in a whole new generation of people that have never heard your music before. And I think other bands like Vampire Weekend and Cage's Elephant, like I mentioned this year, kind of suffered that kind of slump because people weren't aware and they hadn't been around for a while. And I kind of forgot about their last album, Sacred Hearts Club, how much I enjoyed it. And so this kind of had me revisit their work. But this was a new sound for them, and it was so fun. I think it was weird. There were some really weird songs on here, but Mark Foster, the lead singer and lead guy, has like this very interesting voice that kind of takes you in all different directions, and this very out of outer earth, otherworldly sound, but still just a very good alternative project. I think that it has a little bit of some 70s vibes, but it definitely went underappreciated, and I think that it is a very, very good sweet spot for Foster the People, and I would love to see them to continue in this sound and this range. And yeah, definitely listen to it. It's a good return for them, and I hope that they do not take another 7 years to come out with an album, because if it's this good, I'm gonna need it a lot sooner. So now we're gonna move into probably the biggest release in August, and that is from Miss Sabrina Carpenter with her 1, 2, 3, I don't know, like 6th, 7th, 8th album, and that is Short and Sweet, which became the massive album that it is, and one of the biggest albums of the year, and I think rightfully so. Sabrina has been in the game since she was a young girl, acting, and then moving into Disney, and then putting out several albums, and just kind of being seen as like this C-list Disney, ex-Disney star, offspring of whoever. And I kind of hated to see that, because I think that she's worked hard and she's done a lot over the years. And, you know, her last album, Emails I Can't Send, I felt like it was kind of a little bit of a restart for her, and a kind of a reintroduction to her and her music. And I think that she deserves all the success that she is getting right now. She is a phenomenal artist, and I think she is bringing pure, big, bubblegum pop, what you would expect out of pop music from a female artist, and I think that she's done it in a way that is completely unique to her. A little bit raunchy, to say the least, but I think that she deserves every bit of success that she's getting. Of course, she debuted at number one with her second single, Please, 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 but I would venture to say that the first single, Espresso, was one of the top songs of the year, and then the third single, Taste, also made it in the top three, and having all three singles from the album is not a common thing at all, but I think that she honestly dominated the year alongside Charlie and Chapel, and she deserves it. She really does, and I'm glad to see her kind of maybe stepping into shoes that maybe she's more confident in, and more confident in her sound and her vision as where she wants to go as an artist. I feel like her last album definitely took her from being just an everyday pop star to being Sabrina Carpenter and the artist that we know and love now, and what she stands for and who she is as a person and what we love about her. And I think she just continued to grow off of that and just take off from there. And it obviously was produced by Jack Antonoff, so he still has the ability to do really, really, really great work. And I'm glad that he did not get complacent with this. And I don't think that it is the best pop project of the year. However, it is one of the best albums of the year. I can't deny that. It's funny, it's unfiltered, it's relatable, it is outlandish, it is inappropriate at sometimes. There's just a little bit, it's all over the place. But I feel like it has so much personality, and sometimes that is what works so well for artists and their music, is that they put so much of their personality into their music, and in a way that where they're not giving away too much of their self. They are, kind of keeping a bit of themselves to themselves, but still being relatable and allowing people to see and have their favorite aspects of them. And I think she is so dang funny. And I mean, she's got songs like Slim Pickens, which it's just so funny. I know that so many of you have heard this album and have heard the songs, and I think that it's kind of like a modern day Teenage Dream by Katy Perry, just that very original pop sound. And I don't think this is going to be a one-off for her. I think she's going to come back and have a really solid next project as well. The comedy, the tour, the callbacks, there's just so much that this album has brought into music culture, and she's great, and she deserves all of the long overdue success that she is getting now after so many albums and so many years in the industry. Next, we're moving into another artist who has just recently gotten their kind of big notice in the past month or two, and still even now in January. And that is Miss Doechii, who she is a hip-hop mogul. She is killing it, and she got nominated for, I think, all three rap categories of the Grammy and Best New Artist, and I think people were not paying her enough attention until that happened, and she's gone on to have performances on late-night shows. She's had music videos, social media things. She's killing it right now, and she is hungry, and she's working, and she wants it, and she has definitely the potential and the direction to be one of the next big hip-hop females and hip-hop artists in general, because nobody has a flow like her. Nobody has a sound like her, and this mixtape she put out this year, Alligator Bites Never Heal, was so good that people are itching for her first album that hasn't even come out yet. And this project had such an artistic image. She is definitely one of the best MCs in rap right now, and I think that her bars, her just kind of homage to classic hip hop, reminds me of Busta Rhymes and Missy Elliott, Queen Latifah. She has that sound, right? And I so often love rap artists like Doja and Tyler and Vince and Nicki and all of the ones who kind of have that very artistic approach to rap. And she did that. She has that, and she has I would venture to say, definitely top 5 maybe even top 3 rap projects of this year. But she has gotten this very, I feel like over the last couple of years, she's kind of swayed in and out of different directions and R&B and pop and rap. It's kind of all over the place. So I think that it was very nice to see her hone in and kind of find a direction for her sound. And I think that she has really found it. And it is a great thing to see when an artist really taps into their full potential. And she's definitely done this. She got a sample of Slick Rick on her song Denial is a River. I think that she knows her market, she knows her target, and she knows how to capitalize on that. And she's going to continue to have a larger and larger audience for sure. There's another song on this album, Skip, which I felt like Doja Cat was going to start singing and rapping on any minute. It just has that sound, and I wish that she could have had Doja on this project, but maybe we'll get that in the future. So the last project of August is When a Thought Grows Wings by Luna Lee, and this is going to be another kind of hidden gem, one that I've not seen anybody talk about. It's very pretty, it's very earthy, it's soft, there's nothing too punchy or in your face with it, but it is pure indie pop, and I love it. She sings and produces her music in a way that you just feel like you can see it, and it's just got this imagery that I really enjoy. She kind of has this like full body kind of chills when you listen to the album, right? And I think that there's a lot of artists in similar realm like Clairo and maybe the Mariahs, Lizzie McAlpine a little bit. I feel like she put everything into this album that I wanted from all of these established artists like Clairo, and she just has this spark to her, and she gave me everything I wanted from that sound. And so if you're a fan of those kind of artists, definitely check this album out. It's very relaxing, it's very lo-fi, but it's a very beautiful project for sure. So now we're going to move into our 4 releases from September. The first being One, which is a sophomore album from kind of a still on the rise artist, but also an actor, model, whatever, if you get the reference that I'm getting at. Then that is Miss Sookie Waterhouse with her sophomore album, Memoir of a Sparkle Muffin, which I know you're probably thinking, what the heck does that mean? And that is a great question. I think that it's a unique, weird sound, but she has this raw rock in her, and she reminds me of Stevie Nicks almost. I got to see her at the Rhyme in Nashville this year, and like, dang, she can put on such a show, and she doesn't really have much going on stage besides her, but she can hold your attention, and I feel like she held your attention very well in the songs, but also in person. But I feel like the songs range from indie rock to girl group songs to Lana Del Rey to like Stevie Nicks. Like I said, I think there's a lot of different things happening. But the album, it's very unique, and it's another one that I did not expect to enjoy as much as I did. It's a step up from her first album. I think that it's more conceptual, but it also maybe be a little bit more in tune with her and maybe the sound that she's going with. And of course, she recently starred in Daisy Jones and The Six, I believe is what it's called, where she was on that show, and they kind of had that. They were like almost like a spinoff show, the Fleetwood Mac story, and I think that she may have taken some inspiration from that for sure. But she is a star, and she just has this kind of punk, cool, awesome vibe to her. I mean, she came out wearing sunglasses and a boa at her show. Like, she's just cool, and I think that just is spotlighted through her music. Yeah, and I definitely enjoyed it. The next one is from, believe it or not, a country album, but this is one that took me by surprise. I had never listened to this artist's music before, and that is Kassi Ashton with her debut album, Made from the Dirt. Now, Kassi, the cool thing about Kassi Ashton is that she has like this deep, very soulful sound that also still has a twang in it. And I don't think that's very common in country music at all. She has this very raw, just kind of like different sound. And I think that one of the cool things that I like about her is that she very much prides herself in her music sounding the same, like her vocals sounding the same in person as they do in production and in the studio. And this album is only 10 songs, and she, I feel like, takes the opportunity to let you get a look at her life and look at what she's going through, and all while killing it with the vocals. I mean, I would venture to say that she has one of the best vocal ranges and just sounds in country music, and she's obviously not on the level that like Megan and Ella are in terms of like rise to fame, but I think that she's still on the rise, and she's had a couple like smaller hits. One of the best songs in this album is called Crazy, where she talks about it's almost like it feels like almost a tribute to Before He Cheats by Carrie Underwood, about being the crazy girl but always coming out on top. And she says, I've never been called crazy by a man who didn't come back for more. And I think that if you get kind of the vibe of that, that's the kind of lyricism, and that's the kind of like very tongue-in-cheek, very just like really good songwriting that we were missing a lot of times in all kinds of artists. My favorite song on this album was The Straw, and it is just this very stripped back song about the last straw that breaks the back of the person that you love, right? And I think that it continuously grows and grows to a song, and then it just kind of drops. And I think that the way the song was produced, to where it is like the message of the song, you just put so much into it, and then boom, it just all falls apart. And I think that the way that song was put together was really, really cool, and that was the song that really put me on her and her album. I just love her deep soul and her unique sound, and like I said, it's only 10 songs, it's very concise, and it left me wanting more. I found myself listening to this album on loop for sure. And I would venture to say that this is the best country album of the year. It is definitely Grammy-worthy country project, and I know that it will go unnoticed just because of the stupidness that country listeners have about female artists. But it's just a really great project, and I think that she's going to continue to just grow and put out more and more work. Next is a country project, but this one's a little bit different. This one, dare I say, is a modern-day Elvis country project, and that is from none other than, believe it or not, Mr. Mason Ramsey with his debut album, I'll See You in My Dreams. Now, if you're not familiar with Mason, or you don't recognize his name, he was the yodeling Walmart boy several years ago in Walmart. And his grandparents or whatever videoed him, and he went viral. And I remember growing up on that video, and super talented kid, but kind of became a meme. And I think that he kind of took a step back and discovered that he really wanted to be a real artist. And he came on the scene, and he came out at CMA Fest this year. And he's like a little Elvis reincarnated. He's like 18 years old now. And his first song on this album, Blue Over You, like, you would think it's an Elvis song. It is so well written. It is so well done. And, I love what he did with this project. I let my mom and grandmother listen to this project, too, and they agree with me that they were like, this is like an Elvis project. He's got the songwriting down, and he writes like an old soul. He acts like an old soul. I think this album is relatable, and I think that when you hear about a former viral star turned 18-year-old country artist, the last thing that you expect is a very solid project, especially debut project. But he is so wise beyond his years, and he's got a little bit of yodeling on here, but it's very nice to see him kind of tap in and find his true voice outside of that. And I feel like he has the potential now to be known as a very sturdy country artist and not just a meme anymore. I think that he has got a great future, and I've seen the chicks dig him already, so I think he's going to be fine. So the last album for September is going to be the sophomore album from Leon Thomas called Mutt. Now, Leon Thomas is a phenomenal producer who has been producing behind the scenes for many, many years, and he is off of the show Victorious. You know, that show has produced so many amazing, talented musicians and actors, and he is killing it with his production on his own albums. And he's had the first song that I fell in love with by him was with Victoria Monet, his remix of his song Breaking Point. And he has just this, like, he's got a really great voice, but the way that some of his songs, the way he puts this moody tune over it, it's just a very different approach to R&B music. And like I said, we don't have a lot of males that are kind of in the game right now, but I think that there's some really dark, moody songs on here, but there are also some kind of like bumpin' songs. The lead track, Mutt, was my favorite on this album, and I think it's a really solid entry for him. I was shocked to see him come out with the second album like a year later, but I think he's just itching to get music out because he's been behind the scenes for so long. He's super talented, and I think I liked his first album better, but I definitely could see growth and see the kind of a more firm direction for what he wants to do with his music for sure. All right, next we're going to get into another really, really great Latin project of the year, and that is In Centros by Becky G. Never in my wildest mind would I think that Becky G would be making stellar full Spanish projects like she has. I grew up with Becky G having some pop radio hits like Shower and Can't Stop Dancing and those were full English songs, and she has come back on the scene now with multiple projects. I think this is her third project in like a three chapter story kind of thing. And what I think is so cool is that she has just really tapped into the Latin market. I think that she was trying to find her place in the music industry, and she did it. I think that the pop route didn't really work in the way that she probably wanted it to, but she killed it, and I love that she has just gone back to her roots with this project. She has gone back to what she really loves about music and her authenticity and who she is, right? And just putting out these Spanish projects because she's just excelled, and she has done crazy stuff now that she has just kind of put her full heritage on display. And we've gotten like Latin pop albums, we've got more Mexicana leaning albums, and I think that she is really showing her love and versatility for all kinds of different Latin and Spanish music. This was a fully Mexicana album, and I love just how versatile she is in the Spanish realm of music. And I think that not really any other Latin female stars are doing it like her. But I just love her authenticity in that. She has some collaborations with Tito Doble P and Oscar Maidon, and I just really liked what she did with this project. And there's not a lot of very popular artists making just straight Mexicana music, and it was really nice to see her do this. And obviously she loves it and is very passionate about it. So I'm definitely proud to see her just kind of put her heritage on display and show her versatility in all different kinds of styles of music. Super solid project. The next is the newest album from our best new artist a couple of years ago, who is one of the leading ladies of jazz music now, and that is Samara Joy with her album Portrait. She is still in her mid-20s and has this soulful voice that's Nina Simone almost. There's just not much there's not much music like her out there, and especially from people in our age group. I just love everything that she has done with all of her work. It's only 8 songs on this album, but it is a whopping 45 minutes in the 8 songs. And when you break that down, that's very, very long songs. But I think that the beauty of jazz music is that you really give the music time to breathe, and she does that. And so I really liked the way that she kind of took a different approach from her first album and had these very long songs that just allowed the music to do. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of these were improv moments and recordings for sure. But I don't think that this is a singles album. I think it works as a whole. And she has definitely got some pipes for sure. I love to see her range from really deep bass on some songs, and also some of these notes and these really high falsettos that she hits. There's another really popular jazz artist right now, Leve, who has really tapped into the younger audience market, and I would just love to see her get a little bit of that recognition, a little bit of that popularity, because she is a pioneer in jazz music for sure, and her winning that Best New Artist was very, very surprising, but she is very deserving of just like the spotlight that she's been given, and just the unique talent and everything that she's doing. All right, so next, moving into probably definitely the biggest album of October, and that is the surprise album from Tyler, the Creator, Chromacopia. This album, I've always been a Tyler fan, but this album absolutely blew me away. I think that Tyler is a genius in all aspects of being an artist and just artistry in general. He is just always doing something new, and he also produced this album completely by himself, which is a very, very difficult thing to do. But like with that in mind, listening to it just makes it so much cooler, because sometimes people use 50, 60 producers on songs between songwriting and production and instrumentation and vocals, and he's just sitting there doing it all by himself. Like, it's nothing. And I would say that Tyler is now solidified himself as one of the big 3 of rap. He is a true artist, a true visionary in everything that he does. This was the most real and authentic Tyler album that we've got. I would say that it's definitely still not my favorite album from him, but it is. He tried something new, something very different, very artistically different, and it paid off. I think that he, his kind of story with this album is he's wearing a mask of his own face, and that was because he's hiding behind how crazy it is to just share these truths about him as a person. And I think that there's just a lot to unpack in all of these songs, and I think that Tyler is sometimes a very unserious person, and he's very unfiltered, and I think he's had a little bit of a controversial past to the point where now you can't really cancel him for anything because he's grown so much and changed as a person. But it's just so cool to see him take this direction and just be open and honest and to just do really, really cool stuff. And there are some bangers. There are some really gut-wrenchingly honest lyrics about his life and growing up and just doing everything through his own eyes. And I think that's a really, really cool thing for him. And of course, there is a little bit of a story in there, but it's all very real to him and who he is and what he's gone through as a person. I think that it's a perfect mix of his older and newer sound, So it's going to kind of bring in people from both old Tyler fans and new Tyler fans, and maybe even brand new Tyler fans, who knows. But I think it was really cool, and I love that he dropped this on a Monday morning because obviously, of course, we get new albums on Friday nights, and he got a brand new album to drop at 8 a.m. on a Monday, right? Because he wanted people to listen to it on their way to work and listen to it throughout the week and things like that. And like just in a few days of tracking, he got like, I think the biggest rap opening of the year, and definitely one of the biggest openings of all of the year. And it was like over 300,000. And that was without physicals going in. And I'm really, really impressed what he's done with this project, and I would love to see him just continue to surprise us, and I think that he will because he is a phenomenal artist, and you just have to respect him and what he puts into his art because it's amazing. And the last release for October is one that also surprised me. This is from kind of not a super, super famous artist in R&B music or just in general, but that is Kiana Lede with her new album, Cut Ties. And this was her first release as an independent artist. I did not really care for either one of her first albums. She's got a couple really good singles, but this album was just very, very well done and very well put it into the R&B space of women empowerment, and very unapologetic and just going through trauma and grudges and personal growth and making all of that relatable. And I think it's really, really cool that her first independent project is definitely her best work ever. And it was a shorter album for sure, but I feel like sometimes her previous work kind of all stuck together, and we don't want that. We want to see growth, and that is what this project is growth as a woman, as an artist, as a person, and she put all that on display. And I love how open and vulnerable she's been about her journey and how she put that in the songs for sure. All right, so now we're getting into the last 5 releases of the year. And there's some really big ones in here. There's also some big surprises, but this is the home stretch, so here we go. So we're starting into November, and the first album was Restless Mind by Sam Barber. Now, I promise this is the last country album of the year that I'm going to get into, but Sam has a very interesting sound. He's got this very down-to-earth, very... I want to say almost like a normal person. He doesn't write like a famous celebrity. He writes like just a normal guy who's going through life, and I think that's what makes him so relatable. He's just a hometown boy. He's like 21 years old. He has this raw grit in his voice, the way that he sings, and it's rough and it's just very unique. And I think that there's definitely a rise in the need for songwriters like that. And you know, we see so often artists like him and even Zach Bryan and Dylan Gossett, Wyatt Flores, these kind of just very different takes on country music and sound that are just very unique to and very true to the kind of like everyday average person and just what they would make music wise. And I think that's really, really cool. This album is like 28 songs, which I would say is very, very long and is very difficult to pull off for any kind of artist, let alone someone with a debut album, and let alone someone who makes very stripped back country music. Does not sound like a good mix of things, but he somehow managed to keep the attention. There's some interludes on there. There's some voice notes. Somehow he managed to pull it off. I think that in the past I haven't really been drawn to his music just because I felt like it kind of was repetitive and there wasn't a lot of new or just different like there wasn't a lot to offer that was just different than what he had previously put out. And this album is not like that at all. I think that it tells a very unique story that maybe not everyone can relate to, but I think that everyone can appreciate where he comes from and what he writes about. And, he has a viral song, Straight and Narrow, and a couple other ones that kind of went viral. And just, this grit in his music and his voice. And I think people just appreciate that he's just this down-to-earth guy who happened to get famous and make music. And he just talks about the ups and downs of life and growing up and all that fun stuff. So, it's not for your average radio country listener, but it is maybe for more so, like I said, those other artists, if you're familiar with them. It's a good album. Next is one that I do feel like was underappreciated, and that was Mr. Shawn Mendes with his second self-titled album. This one is just called Shawn. I was really impressed with what he did with this album. You know that I have mentioned over 1,000 times by now that the alternative country sound that has been pushed on everybody does not work for everyone, and you have to really, really sell it. And he has been off the scene taking care of himself and his mental health and writing music for several years now, and he canceled a tour. And I was really afraid when we first started to get the first couple of singles. I was like, man, he is, this may be it for him. And I hate that because at one time, a couple years ago, he was the biggest male artist, at least one of the biggest. And he was doing that all with just standing with a guitar and singing. And he has had a very long career already to just be in his 20s. And I was just really worried about this album. And I think that he just continued to get more open about the direction of this album and more open about him as a person and just being open and authentic and just showing us what he can do as an artist. He collaborated a lot with Mike Sabbath and Eddie Benjamin, and the music that they made for this album is so well done. That he nailed that folk sound. It's a short album. It's 12 songs, but they're all like 3 minutes or less songs. And I think that was also another kind of commercial worry for him. I don't know. I think that it was a very big risk album for him, but he also seems to be more so sure of himself and his music and who he is as a person, more so than we've ever seen. And he's been in the public eye since he was on Vine back in the day and TikTok and being a viral social media guy. So I feel like he's been in the public eye for a while, and people have always tried to tell him who he is, what his music should sound like. And I think he has finally just decided to be who he is and make the music that makes him happy and makes him an artist that he's proud of. And it's definitely paying off for him. I think that he is not wanting to be mega uber super famous anymore. I think he's in a sweet spot where everyone knows him, but he doesn't need the massive insane fan bases and just attention to be happy and proud of his music. And it is really cool to see him be so proud of this music, and I think that's kind of what makes it so good. But there's some really good confident vocals and beliefs very present in this album. And it's just an album where he's just found his direction, found his happiness, and I'm very happy for him. I think that he deserves this. And he ends the album with a cover of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah that he wasn't really necessary, but I guess he's a fan of the song. It worked for the album. I was a very big fan of what he did, and it was a really good solid project, and I'm glad that he was able to make the music that he wants to, and it's just paid off for sure. I would definitely say that of the sound that is just so evident in music, he has nailed it, and probably the best of many years. So next we're going to get into an artist that kind of makes some soulful music, and that is Mr. Michael Kiwanuka with his latest album, Small Changes. Now, Michael's not super well known. He had a song as the theme song to the HBO show Big Little Lies, and he's got kind of a 50s sound. He has production with Inflow, who works with Little Sims a lot. And then he also worked with Brian Burton, who has worked with the Black Keys, and Gnarls Barkley with CeeLo Green. And I think that you can definitely see that in some of the work here. I think this is just a very chill album. It's got some big moments, it's got some little moments. I feel like it's got a lot more free sound than his previous work, but it is still very rooted in him and his heritage and where he comes from. And I think that he does a lot more storytelling personal to him on this album. It is definitely a soulful album, and I hated to see it get released so late in the year because I felt like there wasn't enough time to digest it, and I feel like I'm still getting into it. But it is a great album, and he has such a unique tone and a unique sound, and he's in an artistry in a genre that's not very popular right now. So I think that allows him to be very unique and very well spotlighted for sure. So we're down to the last two. And the first one of the last two is GNX by Kendrick Lamar, which was another surprise release that we did not know was coming. And man, Kendrick has had a year. This year has also solidified him as one of the continual big three in rap. He is goated, and he murdered Drake in their rap beef. And it's insane to think that his diss track to Drake is Grammy nominated and a number one song and a hit. It really is. So I would hate to be Drake right now, but this album was the first Kendrick album that I fully enjoyed. I've always appreciated Kendrick as an artist, but he's just never really been for me. And I think that this album has the best opening track for him. It just really grabs your attention, shows where you're going. He's angry. He's ready on this album. TV Off, what felt like a continuation of Not Like Us, his track about Drake. I felt like Reincarnated had some Eminem vibes. There was a lot happening with this album. It was insane. And, of course, he also surprise dropped this on a Monday. So I don't know if him and Tyler talked and were like, we're going to change the game up or whatever. But I think this is a really solid project. And I think a lot of times because it's Kendrick, people automatically assume it was really good. But when you get into it and you come from a standpoint of someone who doesn't always really enjoy Kendrick music but appreciates his contribution to rap music, it is really well done. And I think that it is going to maybe pull in some listeners who don't normally like rap music as a whole. But there's some really interesting collaborations. And, of course, we got another collaboration with SZA on this album. And sonically, the two of them together are just so beautiful. I would love to get a whole mini project from them. Of course, they're going on tour together later this year. And they are killing it. And I love the direction that he went with this album. And I love that he brought her in. And, of course, speaking with her, we're going to move into the last release that I was honestly holding out for, and that was the SOS Deluxe Lana. Now, I know there's a lot of back and forth on whether or not this is a full album or if it's just the deluxe release from SOS from 2022, and I'm including it just solely because it was originally intended to be its own project, and it was 15 songs, so it stood on its own, and I loved this album. I loved what she did with it. I think that SZA has such unique, beautiful vocals, and there's so many different types of songs. You have Kitchen, that's just like this angelic sound, and then you have Dry, which is just her like spitting on a track, and then you have What Do I Do, which seems to be more like pop leaning a little bit, and then you have my personal favorite, Another Life, which is just this phenomenal vocal track that just is very cinematic and dramatic, and it honestly had me in the feels because it's such a creative and just genius song. And I think that SZA is a genius. She really is, and I hate to see her not always maybe take her career as seriously as her fan base and the general public does. I think that she's had a lot of missteps and a lot of challenges in her career with her management and label. But I think that hopefully moving forward, we're going to continue to get more from her in a more timely manner. And I hated to see that her second album took 5 years to come out. So I think that if you're a fan of SZA, you know she's a little bit unreliable, and you listen to it when it comes out. You don't really listen to the dates or whatever. But I think this album was more so for the true SZA fans. There was a lot of hits on the original SOS that were Kill Bill and Snooze that were really, really good songs, but a little bit more mainstream, and she picked up that mainstream R&B kind of connection there. I think that this album is more so dependent on her fans and her real, true, deep audience, and I think that this album is a perfect companion to SOS. It is just like her in the healing stage. I think there's a lot of hurting and understanding things on SOS, and Lana's about healing and moving on in that journey, and also still making mistakes and still learning and being honest and vulnerable about that. And I think that's the human experience, and I love that she uses such a beautiful voice to just make relatable music. And of course, no surprise that this was one of the top albums of this year, and I love it. I love everything that she has done with this project. So, of course, I've got 2 honorable mentions to get into before we wrap this up. My first one is going to be Ariana Grande. I think Eternal Sunshine had some really, really good songs. But I just felt like this album as a whole was missing that Ariana spark, and I felt like her heart and her attention was on Wicked this year, which it should be because she was phenomenal, and her vocals and sound and that soundtrack was amazing. But I just feel like this was a little bit of a misstep. I know her fan base is very, very proud of this album, but I do feel like it was a little bit of a misstep. It just didn't seem to have... I feel like it's definitely her most concise album and most cohesive, but I just felt like there was not enough of that Ariana spark that we all loved there. And so I just would have wanted a lot more from her. And I also think that I loved Yes and in that direction, but that wasn't the direction of the album at all. So I think that also threw me off a little bit. But it's good, but I don't think it's her best at all. And the second honorable mention that I have to mention is Halsey. This album was something, I mean, she's constantly changing and evolving and trying new things as an artist, and I respect her so much for that. But this album, I think, had so much lore and connectivity with, her sickness that she went through, and putting that there's some really gut-wrenchingly honest songs on this album, and I think that this album, The Great Impersonator, has her showing influences through so many different acts through history. And I think that while the message that she was sharing was very important, and the inspiration that she used was very well done, it kind of got mixed up in each other. And so it was like, why is she doing this? Why? I don't understand the message, but people weren't really aware of everything that she had been through. So I just felt like there was too much going on there. There were some really good songs on that album, but it was not my favorite from her. And I'm so glad that she's out making more music, but it was not my favorite album from her. Of course, other notable releases this year, we had the Brat Remix album, which was just completely redone from the original album. Was really, really good. Kehlani had an album come out that had some good hits on it, but I felt like it was a little bit all over the place. The Twister soundtrack was a really good country album, but we had enough country this year. It was just really long, and there are some songs that could have been left off. Peso Pluma had an album come out. I think that this album would have been good without the kind of mini project attached to it where he had basically his rap phase in it. I don't know. I just didn't like the way it worked. Childish Gambino, it was okay album. There were some good collaborations. He had Jorja Smith, Khruangbin, but I just felt like it was kind of a weird outing for his last Gambino album. And some good songs like Lithonia and In the Night, but I just didn't really like the way he wrapped things up. And of course, the big one I've left out is Taylor Swift. I appreciate Taylor Swift as an artist and all she's done for the country, for the pop, alternative genre. She's done so much, but I just felt like this album was not anywhere near her best, anywhere close to it. I think that her fan base will stand by this album, and that's completely okay. I don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong with this album, but I don't think there's necessarily anything good about it. I think Fortnite was a good hit. I liked it. There's a couple other songs that I enjoyed, but I don't feel like that, when you talk about Taylor Swift, talking about her being basically the biggest artist ever, you expect something really good, and I feel like this album was complacency, and it had too much lore, and it had phenomenal songwriting on some of the songs, but I just felt like there was too much there, and I just wasn't a fan. And I think with albums like 1989 and Folklore and Midnights and Reputation and Fearless, she just has so many big staples in music and just that were very genre defining and did so much, and this album didn't do it. And I feel like that her and Jack Antonoff together has gotten kind of stale, and they need to take a break and just try different things. And then, of course, re-releasing with the anthology was just even more loaded, and I think that just wore it off even more for me, that it was just too much, and it just didn't hold through enough for me. So last thing that I'm going to talk about is I have 4 EPs that are not full projects. If you're not aware, an EP is just usually like less than like 8 songs, less than 30 minutes. It's a very small project. The first one being Luke Hemmings' Boy. I would have loved to see this be a full project from him. Luke is an amazing artist, and he makes very, very different music than his 5 Seconds of Summer sound, and he has a little bit of that Harry Styles influence, but I think that he makes music that's very just very unique and different, and I loved this project, and I really wish that it was longer. The second one is one of my favorite artists, Maren Morris, who came out with her first really not country project. This was, I guess, technically pop. This was The Intermission, and this was 5 songs. That was just kind of her bridge between country and whatever direction she goes in next. And this was, even though it was 5 songs, it was one of the best projects of the year. I loved what she did with this, and amazing. This Is How a Woman Leaves, one of the best songs of the year. So good on so many different aspects. I loved it. I love everything she does, but I can't wait to see her come out with a new album. I think it's going to be really good. The third one was actually the Smile 2 EP, Sky Riley, that had Naomi Scott with some original songs, and this was just pure pop bangers. It's crazy to think that a horror movie had such a phenomenal pop EP, but it was just really well done, and I would like to see real music from Naomi Scott because she's killing it, and I hope that we're going to get that. But the marketing campaign for that movie was always insane, and I loved the direction they went with the pop star and just the music that came out. Really, really good songs. And, of course, the last one is the Chainsmokers with their EP No Hard Feelings. We were originally supposed to get an album from them in 2024. That didn't happen, but we got some really good songs. I think they were a little bit more in tune with the older classic Chainsmokers sound and what their fan base and what the general public knows them best for. There's some really good songs on there. We definitely needed more good EDM releases this year, and I wish that we got a whole release from them. But in the meantime, while we wait, I think this was a really good project that had like 6 songs that were just all very solid. And I'm always impressed with their work for sure. But that wraps it up. That is everything. It has now been basically a whole month of me talking about these and diving deep into these, and there's so many. If you want to see my full list, I listened to 316 albums this year. So if you want to see the whole list of how I ranked those after listening to them, you can see that on my links in my bio, on my TikTok, all that kind of stuff. But that's it. And I'm excited to see all the music that we're going to get in 2025. There's going to be some really, really good releases that are coming out that are starting the end of January. I'm so excited. The next couple episodes, we're going to be talking about the Grammys. We've got those coming up on February 2nd. I'm super excited. Stay tuned. It's coming soon. I'm so glad that we have gone through all of these. I hope that you guys have heard about some new music, have heard about some things that maybe you didn't know anything about, or you heard your favorites mentioned. But if there's still any that you think I left out, please let me know. And I am always dying to listen to new music, and there's just never enough time to listen to music. But we've already got a couple releases from January already, which, believe it or not, we're only a couple days in, and we already have a release from Bad Bunny. So I think this year is going to be loaded, and I'm excited to see what 2025 has. Tune in next time. Please let me know what you guys want to hear about. I would love to just talk about whatever you guys want to hear. So thanks for tuning in, and I hope that you guys enjoyed the best of music for 2024.